Barely slept. Okay. All right. Welcome back to another episode of Dr. J Radio Live. Oh, let me get in the proper frame here. As you can see, I got Mr. Preston Dennett. So yesterday was a little miscommunication, and so he's finally here. Now, we got some new amazing cases to talk about, and actually, they're a part of Preston's new book on 25 new fascinating cases called Wondrous, which Preston will tell you about throughout the entire broadcast and near the end, of course, where you can get the new book. But let's go ahead and jump into this title that I created. Obviously, I think it's very important that people know that we are talking about alien extraterrestrial implants. The ones that I saw and that were tested, that were found to have materials that could not have been made on Earth, that some of them were unknown, and it was also consistent with sending a signal somewhere in deep space. Somebody out there was receiving it, and it sure as hell wasn't us. Obviously that and a few other things. And Alex Oyen, thank you so much, sir. I'm going to put that up for everyone to see. God bless you. Preston, tell us about this alien implant, because I've always been fascinated with that. I miss, God damn it, Roger Lear so bad. But, you know, I honestly haven't held an implant since he passed away in early 2014. So tell us about this brand new case, because I haven't heard anyone since Roger bring anything new to the table when it comes to implants.
Yeah, it's an interesting case for sure. I hear a lot about alien implants. This is not unusual. I would actually call it a rule, particularly with people who've had onboard UFO encounters. We'll go to the doctor, and the doctor will say, "What's this in your sinus? You know, what's this in your foot? What's this in your arm?" Not unusual. But this next case knocked my socks off, I have to tell you. Comes from a lady in Indiana.
Okay.
She has a young son, he was a teenage son when this occurred. This was around, it's actually still an ongoing case. This was back in 2013.
Okay.
Her son was 14 years old.
So this is something Roger doesn't know about. He never obviously mentioned this case in Indiana. Okay, keep going.
No. So, 2013, he's 14 years old, and I call her Nancy, and I call him Anthony. That's not their real names.
Of course.
They want to be anonymous.
Them. Yes.
And she took her 14-year-old son, Anthony, to the dentist, as she does every year or so, for, cleaning, checkup, x-rays, so forth. And that's what they did. They cleaned his teeth, checked him. He looked good, took x-rays. And that's when things started to get weird.
Where was, okay, go ahead and tell us the weirdness, because I'm very curious about location, because I found that since we've been removing them, they've been putting them in places that they cannot be removed, like in your brain or behind your eye, as Ricky G explained when I had him on recently. He said because when he asked about that the ET explained that you guys figured out how to remove them, so this is why we place it here now. So where was this if she was at getting dental work done, dental x-rays? Because that's, let's hear it.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you say that, because I've got cases where people had spotted implants in their body, and the ETs came and removed them and said, "We're putting it in a place you won't find it."
Great.
But at any rate, going back to this story, they took the x-rays on this 14-year-old boy, dental x-rays, and didn't show them to him, but started calling in all the other dentists in the office. Not just one or two of them. There was like 7 dentists in this office, I think, and brought them all in to examine these x-rays. And the dental assistants. They were all freaking out. And finally his mother is watching through the viewing window and is signaling to her son, like, "What's up? What's taking so long?" And he just shrugs. He's like, "I don't know." So finally, the dentists call her in to the office, and she's thinking, oh no, something's wrong. And they bring her over to the x-rays and show them to her and asked her what this object was. And there on these x-rays, it showed a large-ish round object about the size of a small marble, bigger than a BB, but
yeah,
around thereabouts.
okay.
And it was under his back left lower molar, his molar tooth.
Sounds like some spy shit to me. I mean, remember, CSI, KGB, Stasi in the 50s and 60s would routinely, literally drill a hole in one of their molars and plant a device there. Obviously, this was, then, and the size obviously has changed drastically of what we can do. So, and by the way, sorry, you're going to see that happen a lot because this always flickers on and off. So what did they do? Was it something that was removable? Because it's
no, not. I mean, yeah, you could possibly, but you'd have to remove the tooth.
Okay. Yeah. Obviously. Yeah.
So they're looking at this thing and they're like, "What is this?" And they asked the son, "Did you and her? Did you get shot in the mouth with a BB gun?"
Mm-hmm.
And he said no, and his mother said no, that never happened. We would have remembered it.
Of course, that would have been
happen.
Serious. I've been shot by a BB gun, and it got lodged in the skin. So I know you wouldn't forget something like as serious as that,
right?
Yeah.
And besides, I mean, I've got the X-rays. It's larger than a BB. It looks more like a marble to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's right there under the tooth.
That's pretty big. If the size of a marble versus a BB, that's pretty damn big, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it's about half the size of the tooth, maybe.
Okay. So I was thinking about the size of the tooth because I was thinking that size marble. Anyway, go on. Because the next thing I want to follow up is I'm very curious. Did the mother have an implant as well, or is it just the teenage son?
Well, I'll continue with the story.
Yes, please do.
The short answer would be no, not apparently, but there is evidence, possible circumstantial evidence pointing towards that. But at any rate, so they're looking at these X-rays and they says, "Well, what is it? What is it?" And she joked, maybe it's an alien implant. Purely joking. I've never thought about UFOs.
Did she have any subconscious memories or did he have any subconscious memories that may have come out in dreams about beings or lights or craft or anything, or just nothing?
Yeah, well, that was my first question to them.
Yes, of course.
So what happened? Because there's no entry wound.
Of course, there never is.
The tooth is fine.
Yeah, no scar tissue, nothing.
No pain.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Well, give me the X-rays. I want to, get a copy of them," which they did. Turned out the year before, when she had gone to the dentist, they were other dentists saw it too, but it did not tell her.
Mm-hmm.
So, and she's not able to get those X-rays. At any rate, she took these X-rays home and is freaking out because she.
I would be too, obviously.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, what is this? How did this get in her son's mouth? What's going on? And she's searching the internet. There's nothing to explain this. There's no explanation for it.
But did she ultimately come to alien implants? Because, some people routinely find it when they're searching for objects in their body found in unusual locations with no entry wound, no pain, no, scar tissue, none of that stuff.
Yep, that's exactly what happened. Finally, she stumbled upon it. Didn't want to go there.
Of course,
she was
who does? It sounds right? Kind of wacky, even though it's true.
And but she was obsessed. She compared herself to Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounters, building mountains out of mashed potatoes.
Yeah. Okay.
She's like, okay, and started reading about aliens, and it was pretty clear to her right off the bat that was probably the best explanation for what was going on here.
Yes. Now, did she contact you or vice versa?
She contacted me.
Do you think there's a possibility that this is a man-made implant that was put in by an ARV or some not even necessarily Men in Black, just see, a lot of people have the misconception and blame the CIA for everything. I want to clear this up legally, and I've actually said this multiple times when I've had members of the CIA on this, that CIA by law cannot operate. Sorry, this camera might be fucked for the entire interview. If it is, then forgive me, but I'm doing my best. Anyhow, the CIA legally cannot operate in a domestic border without a domestic agency attached. So something like the FBI has to attach itself to the CIA, and therefore the secrets that the CIA would know on that particular issue would have to be shared. So, CIA is not necessarily a good place to look for information. Of course, there is information about UFOs, but point is that that's the case with it. But do you think there's some form of government officials that may be doing this? Did you explore that option at all? Yeah. Especially that there was no subconscious dreams about aliens?
Yeah, and of course the operative word you said is legally. Who breaks the law? I mean, people do.
Every fucking day, especially now, yeah.
Even within government. But,
yeah. The corruption is disgusting. Disgusting right now. It's so bad. It's really sad.
So
we're paying the price every single day.
Because certainly this is something I see people are having encounters. Often, like their dad is in intelligence, naval intelligence.
Wow. Whoa. See that's even more interesting twist into the case, because that really could fit. Like, remember, Bob Lazar was paid by the was it Office of Naval Intelligence? ONI, right? ONI? Yeah. That's where his checks came for when he worked at S4 through EG&G. So do you think there was something that they were possibly testing that may be related to some of our, sports model? I'm only playing devil's advocate with you, by the way.
Yeah,
of course.
No, I mean, you can track a lot of stuff to the Navy. They're neck deep in this stuff. And it does seem like there's a lot of contactees who have naval intelligence in their family. That too.
And do you think that we finally have reached a point where we do have our own ARVs, like the TR-3B, for instance, which even see sketches of actual blueprints? Now, I don't know if those are official or not. Obviously we see a lot of great triangle footage that fits the TR-3B with that giant red light in the middle, etc. So you do think that this could possibly be something like that? Because again, we have our UFOs and they have their UFOs. I'm beginning to really understand that Greer wasn't really off when he said that at all.
Yeah, I included three whistleblower accounts in this book, by the way, so we can get to that.
Okay.
But which absolutely, I do think that's happening.
Yes.
And, turns out the mother is adopted. She does not know her real parents.
Okay.
And it's just her and her son alone in the world.
Wow.
So there does not seem to be a connection there. He's 14 years old. So just a kid. It would be kind of weird. Why would the military do that to, an anonymous...
No, it makes sense. I just... why do they do everything that they've done? Why did they test stuff on American soldiers in the 50s, post World War II, during the Vietnam War era? They've done some seriously bad stuff against humans, of course, against their own citizens, for God's sakes, especially those who have served to protect this government. And they're the ones that suffer the most in some of these cases, which is really pathetic that they use us as guinea pigs.
Yeah, there's no military connection in this case.
Gotcha. Do you mind if I stray a little from the title? Because the fact that you brought up the son, I really would like you to talk about this case that always sticks in my head. And it's from UFOs Over California. Hands down, everybody, my absolute favorite book. If you live in any of the states that Preston has written a UFOs over, like New York, Nevada, New Mexico, Colorado, Arizona, etc., then you highly recommend getting those books. But that case where that woman with a young son and the little balls that the ETs got mad at him about. He went through the walls.
Oh, yeah, because they were bringing him right through the walls and opening his eyes and looking at it. And
staying there. I would too if I was 5 or 7 or whatever. Anyway, if you could tell that briefly, and then we'll continue with the 25 new stories.
I mean, you basically told it in a nutshell.
Okay.
I mean,
I'll break it down for everybody in a even quicker nutshell. Essentially, the ETs got mad at this little child because they would literally take him through a wall and they would break down the matter into literally atoms. And this kid was seeing atoms in colors, and they would get mad and say, "You can't stay there," because he's like in between, like in the wall, like sticking out. And they want him to go through. So I thought that was a very interesting take, because children, for the most part, don't lie. And something like that would make complete sense if, in fact, they do take us. And remember, this happened, what's his name? Jim Sparks, right? He has his foot half through a sliding glass door and half inside the house. And that was when he really realized that he was going out and coming back in with mud. So anyway, this is really interesting stuff. Now let's talk about one of the. There's actually a couple landings, right, in this new book?
Well, let me finish this one case.
Okay. There's more. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, it's actually not done. It gets more interesting.
Okay.
Because they go home. They're looking at this. They send me the X-rays. I'm looking at them. I'm like, wow, they're in the book. I included them in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I sent them off to some doctors to look at. Both said the same thing. Did the kid shoot himself in the mouth with a BB gun? I'm like, no. They diagnosed him as foreign bodies.
Yeah.
Metallic density. And it's right there under the tooth. So she's freaking out, cannot get over this. And I'm like, talking to her, I'm like, do you have any UFO history? And she's denying it. And so is he. And I'm like, you gotta have, and I'm like, this is weird. I just know that there's got to be something to this. And I'm like, ask him again. Because she says, I already asked him. I'm like, well, ask him while I'm on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't want to talk to me. He was, 14.
Of course.
And,
yeah.
And so she's talking to him through me, or, I'm talking to him through her, I guess. And she says, honey, have you seen a UFO? And he says, well, yeah, Mom, I didn't want to tell you, but I did. And it was just before all this went down.
Okay.
Yeah, they were walking outside, he and his friend.
Uh-huh.
And this lights came swooping down very low, a couple of 100 feet. That's a huge red flag when something's within 100 feet.
Yeah, and stops above you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a huge red flag. But what was the shape, if you don't mind saying?
It was at night. He couldn't really tell.
Okay.
It's white lights at first, and then it started flashing colored lights, as if wanting to be noticed, which they do. So I think they were kind of showing themselves
the rainbow
off.
Rainbow lights. I've heard. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Yeah. And so I'll wrap this up because it is somewhat a lengthy case.
Yeah.
So he's having dreams about Nordic, human-looking ETs.
Okay.
And he's very interested in them. Doesn't really remember anything. Didn't want to talk about his dreams. He's freaking out.
Yeah.
They're both freaking out.
Yeah.
But she can't let it go. And I'm counseling her through this.
I mean, it's her son, of course.
Yeah.
It's her child. I could see that.
Yeah. Who's very psychic, by the way.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's another interesting take on it too, because I've heard a lot of high strangeness creates psychicness.
This is something that turns up with contactees.
Yes. And abductees.
They'll be taken, then boom, boom, they're going out of body, or they're having precognitive dreams and all. But long story short, she's still freaking out, and I'm counseling her through it. When suddenly she calls me up, I think this is about a year into it. This is a case that was unfolding under my very eyes, which is unusual. Sometimes it takes years for people to find someone to talk to.
Yeah, it's true.
So she calls me up and she's like, they came last night. I'm like, what happened? What happened was she woke up. Turned out her son had come to sleep with her that evening. He has trouble sleeping sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
No surprise.
Yeah, of course. The trauma,
Yeah, they sleep with the nightlight, both of them. At any rate, she wakes up, can't move, barely opens her eyes, finally gets them open, and there's grays lined up along the bed where her son is sleeping. And she looks over by the door, and there's one standing by the door. Comes right up to the doorknob, real short, 3, maybe not even 4 feet.
The typical like AI clone drone, Grays, right?
Hard to say. Hard to say.
See, that this makes really interesting sense because when you talked about the Nordics that he was interested in, routinely that I've heard, it's usually the Greys that are the implant ones that are involved that people see. So very interesting.
They'll scoop you up, bring you to the ship, and then you meet the other guys.
Yes, that's right. That's right. They're the workers.
Right. So
so this is interesting because now this is the mother you're talking about that she sees, right? Yep. She's seeing them. Okay.
She's seeing them. And actually they lock gazes. They're looking into each other's eyes. And it starts talking to her. And it says, everything's fine. You don't need to worry. Everything's okay. Don't worry. Everything's fine. It's okay. It's okay. Don't be afraid. Everything's fine. Over and over and over again. She said it must have said it 50 times. Mm-hmm. And that she fell asleep. After she was watching this for a good 15 minutes.
Wow. And she remembered it right off the bat instead of months later. That's very interesting because that's very, not common.
It does happen. Yeah,
I know. Like 1-2% of the cases is conscious recall, right?
Oh, I would say it's a higher, 10 to 20.
Okay. Let's see. That's good odds. 1 in 5 to 10. So that's good. Knock on wood. I would hope that I would have conscious recall so I could deal with that.
I think a lot of people don't. Particularly if they have a strong fear response, they'll just, this person's freaking out.
Let's bury it in the subconscious. That's right. Yeah.
So
I got invited to go to Stardust Ranch, and I'm scared shitless, to tell you the truth. I don't want to wake up with scratches or finger marks on my arm, and I have to slash a gray like he does with the sword and shoot at the UFOs with his AK-47. Anyway, I'm frightened beyond belief.
Well, that's what I would call an outlier case. That one's pretty extreme.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
I don't hear a lot of cases quite on the edge like that one.
That's actually one of 2 cases that I've only heard. It's the Stardust and the Skinwalker Ranch. I've heard there's, of course, others like that around the world. It seems to be like, maybe places that are Einstein-Rosen bridges naturally that they're using, actual, wormholes right there. Something absolutely, because it's not just limited to structured craft. They see like holes opening up in the sky, like tunnels where it's light on the other side. It's dark here, and a creature will crawl through and then jump out and run into the woods, like 8 foot tall, black with red eyes, no neck, or they'll see like a triangle ship, like a stealth, but it was like snub nose with that red light underneath, or an actual disc come through, an orb or something like that.
UFO hotspots do this sort of thing too. It's not just UFOs in a flap area. It's ghosts. It's all kinds of cryptozoological creatures. It's a lot. Oh shoot, John, I think you got dropped. Are you there? Oh man.
Hold on.
There you are.
Don't worry. This is shitty program for some reason. I guess I need some new equipment, folks, at some point.
All right, but at any rate, so
don't worry about my camera. If I drop, I'm fixing it always.
All right. So she wakes up the next morning and tells her son Anthony, like, they came. And he's like, what are you talking about? She says it could have been a dream. She's trying to comfort him, doesn't want to scare him.
Of course.
But she says they came, the Greys. He's like, they did for you? And she says, no, honey, they came for you. He's like, wow.
But she saw them going after her son, so they didn't take her at all?
Nope.
Wow.
And he's like, well, I wonder if my implant's still there. They were due to go to the dentist like 2 weeks after this, so they did.
Mm-hmm.
The implant was still there. They took get this. They took an x-ray. Implant's there, right?
Yes.
30 seconds later, I've got the x-rays that show this because they're all time-stamped. It's gone. It is not there.
Wow.
They take another x-ray. It's back.
What?
Yeah, this upset one of the dental assistants so bad she had to leave. She couldn't handle it.
Quit her job over this?
No, she ran out of the room.
Leave. Wow, okay.
Yeah, she was emotionally upset.
Yeah. Wow. What does stuff like that?
Implants can move around and they can disappear.
They have. I remember I was present at Roger Lear's 17th, and sadly, unfortunately, the final surgery he performed, and the initial spot where they located it in the leg, they went to try to go to get it. So they, x-rayed right there again, and the damn thing kept moving. It literally took about an hour or so before they finally, got the damn thing, and it moved like a good inch or so. And what's weird is it magnetized the bone as it moved too. So anyway, they're very bizarre, but that's a first for me. Actually, being there, disappearing and reappearing in seconds in an X-ray. So that's very interesting to me. Sounds like a newer version of these implants, upgrades, if you will, that they're using.
Yeah, the little buggers can move around.
Yeah, apparently they can. Yeah,
it's still there. They've taken X-rays later, and it was a year after this that she had another encounter, and by now she's beginning to remember stuff. She does have a UFO history. There are weird marks on her body.
That makes sense because family lines, right?
Yep.
Yes, perfect. That makes sense.
And also, I've talked to a lot of contactees, and there's a fair number of them that are adopted. That makes me wonder. But at any rate, she had this other experience. She says, "This is a weird one, Preston." I'm like, "Oh, try me."
Yeah.
And she says, "Well, I woke up and I was in this room that looked like a living room, but it wasn't. There was a couch. There was a gentleman sitting on the couch, a young man, normal.
A human. Okay.
Yep. There was a window with blue sky outside. It looked like what looked like a widescreen TV, and a very unusual looking door, kind of ovalish.
Okay.
And they're just kind of making small talk. They're a little dazed, a little sort of sedated.
Uh-huh.
And she says the walls were rounded. It was white, glowing, no light source.
It sounds like it's the inside of a craft.
Yeah.
From what you're describing.
She's absolutely convinced it was, but they just sort of dressed it up to make it look like a living room.
Make her less freaked out, maybe.
Yeah.
Right?
And she wasn't scared. And well, not even until this, someone comes through the door, and it's not a person. It's a praying mantis this time.
Yeah, apparently the surgeons of the bunch, right? And apparently super high IQ too. So what's this? Is it like typical the M-like, with that giant sack, where it can't stand under the craft? It's too tall, so it has to pretty much put its knees in like an M position. The way Tom Reed described it, has that famous picture that he drew or had professionally done for the show. For his book, etc. Anyhow, is that what this looked like, or
no? This one's standing erect.
Okay.
These were tall ceilings, 10 feet probably.
And was this 9 feet, or what would you say?
Yeah, she estimates it was about 9 foot tall, gray in color, long stick-like limbs.
Yeah.
Pretty much your typical praying mantis.
Yeah.
And holding a little thing like a sound card or something, like not a cell phone, but something along that lines.
Interesting.
And puts it against the back of the neck of the guy on the couch, and doing something to him. And then starts walking towards her, and she jumps up and says, "Nope, no."
They didn't sedate her?
Nope. Well, not yet. At that point, they did.
Okay.
So she doesn't really remember what happened next.
I heard a really interesting medical response of why they sedate you. What they do is they flood you with natural opiates and dopamine, and it's like taking a shot of morphine where you're numb because of the natural opiates that they flood you with. That's what I've heard medically is technically happens. And obviously, how can you test that hypothesis? But I think it's as good as any theory of how they sedate you. Obviously, we don't fucking know because they do a lot of stuff that we sure as hell can't explain.
Yeah. It's an interesting case. It's still ongoing. I mean, let's face it, all cases are ongoing.
So how? Okay, so you said this started 2013, 2014.
Yep.
So he was now what, 21?
Yep, that's about right.
Wow.
Yep. Going through college, super psychic on like a daily basis psychic. And I think that's why, there's the connection there.
The mother and the son, damn. Okay.
Yeah, I love those guys. They had a hard time trying to figure out what's going on.
I can't wait till we read this book. Wow. I got to give you props, Preston. You really pump the books out there. What number are you at right now, by the way, for you? 28?
Yeah, I think this is 28 or 29.
That's wow. I mean, that's seriously great. Yeah, everybody, you have to get his damn books. I'm not going to stress that. It's that important. Honestly, they're hands down the greatest UFO books. He's probably the best UFO journalist, literally, that digs information that nobody finds. So I got to give you that, Preston. Now, let's jump into some of these landing cases, the new ones, because this is all new stuff, right? This is all recent stuff, right?
Well, some are more recent than others.
Okay.
I mean, some of these are cases I've sat on for a while because I couldn't fit them in.
Gotcha.
My books. So not all of them are recent. But this is an interesting case for sure. This is a guy who really wanted to share his story. He tried to find my information. Ended up calling my brother first because, my brother has the same last name.
Oh, gotcha.
And so my brother calls me up. This guy is trying to find you. And so I've talked to this guy several times. He's never changed his story. It's a very interesting account. This was some time ago, 1973. The guy's name is Gary. And he and his friends, who are kind of tough guys. They're all teenagers and rough and tumble kind of guys. And like to hang out in this little spot they found above the golf course in San Dimas. This is in California. And there's a dirt road leading up this little mountain to this sort of hidden field. It dips down a little bit. You can't see it from below. So it's this kind of secret little hangout that they would go up to and drink a few beers or just hang out and whatever.
Yeah.
And so
they away from somewhere hidden, a cold chill spot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a rough switchback road. So not something a big truck could get up. This is important, right? So they go up there and they get right into this place where they normally park, and they are not alone.
Something's already landed?
Something is there, yeah, and it's huge. This is much bigger than a helicopter. This is
okay.
This is at night.
So what, 30 to 50 foot maybe diameter?
100 feet.
Whoa.
This is big.
Okay.
It's got a big bank of lights. It's on the ground, as near as they can tell. And there are people on this sort of scaffolding-like thing. And they can't really see what these people look like because they're silhouetted against this very, very bright light.
But did they have the shape of a human in the silhouette? Okay. So no giant head and short, long arms, etc. Anything like that.
They weren't short little beings with giant heads.
Yeah.
These were tall guys, 6 foot, maybe 7. It was hard to tell. Wow. But definitely big, broad-shouldered men type figures.
Wow.
And
did it frighten them? Obviously, I would think so.
Yeah, they jumped out of their car and they bunched together at first, and he started to creep closer a little bit and look around, see if he could get a better viewpoint. But the light, whatever this was, it was huge. It was silent. There must have been 4 or 5 of these figures. And they, at this point, this is where it got kind of interesting. One of these figures apparently noticed them.
Yeah. Now, usually, wouldn't they just, without even visually noticing them, just mentally sense a presence, I would think?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, because they're pretty darn aware of what's going on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I'm wondering if this was an emergency situation for them. Because where they landed was a place that was out of view, certainly, but
yeah,
they can generally hide their presence and don't show themselves unless they're,
something wrong, possibly with the craft or something. And obviously, it seems to me that if these are not ARVs that we're seeing in this, I don't even know what you tell me what you'd call this, because this just seems like a global invasion at this point. And I'm not trying to talk ATIP threat. I'm just saying of what we're actually seeing in the skies. But whether it be ARVs or UFOs is the big difference that we're seeing right now. But what would you call it? Because it's not a local wave. What is this that's going on in the last year and a half, the end of year?
I would just call it a slow and steady escalation of activity. I mean, they have been coming closer and closer and closer and closer for a very long time, and we're reaching. Maybe it's a geometric sort of curve that we're looking at here.
Finally. So, do you think that when that being noticed them, that like again it wanted to be seen? Because again, they landed, you said, somewhere where typically people wouldn't see, so a hidden area. So
yeah, no, I don't think it wanted to be seen.
Okay.
Which is sort of out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
So we got something very.
Unless they were very vulnerable, something broken on the craft or something like that.
Yeah, that's kind of my guess. Is maybe they came down for repairs.
Yeah.
Or something, because he felt like they were moving. They were bustling around. They were moving with urgency.
Yeah, I've also heard from other people that when they seem, it's like they're maybe in the time dilation because they seem to move in a very fast manner. I remember this Finnish case with this lady saw them like with pails, essentially, like, scooping up sand in her like garden area. It was a, tiny little town in, somewhere in Finland and that. And when she said these beings seemed to be like going extremely fast, on picking up stuff, and then eventually just got in and took off. So did they sense anything like that, or just like us in a hurry?
Yeah, just like us in a hurry. Though there's weird time distortions surrounding UFOs.
Absolutely, yeah.
There's cases.
If they are enveloped in gravity, that exactly would make sense.
Right. So that could be what's happening in some of those cases. I don't know. This case, it just seemed like they were moving with urgency. Mm-hmm. So one of them leaves the craft and starts walking towards them.
Oh, shit.
And not in a normal way. I mean, marching.
Like a threatening way?
That's how they took it, because he was marching really deliberately.
Yeah.
And, just coming for them in a quick march. And so they shut up. Who are you? No answer. What are you doing? No answer. Why are you here? No answer. Who are you? No answer. And so this guy's, they're 100 yards away, maybe 300 feet. Hard to say, they couldn't tell for sure, but it was on the far end of the field. And this guy covers about half the field and is getting towards him. He's a big guy. This is when they started to realize this guy is a little bigger than they thought. And they freaked out. They're like, we got to get out of here. Get out of here. They felt really threatened. And they all quickly piled into their Mustang and tore off down the road. Didn't look back. Went straight to the police, told the police what happened. Police took them seriously. You could see they were upset. And they begged him to investigate. He said he would. Mm-hmm. Went up there, didn't find anything. They called the police back. So they went back the next day, and no evidence. No evidence at all.
Not even like an impression in the sand of where it landed? Nothing at all?
Nothing.
Wow. I wonder if it was not necessarily even landed, or maybe just technically hovering, very close to the ground and looked like landed. I don't know. Very interesting. So it seems to me that the being that was coming to them deliberately sounds like trying to send a message of get the hell out of here, as opposed to I'm going to grab you.
Yeah.
If it didn't actually chase them to the car and stop them in their tracks or do something in their heads to take control of them, it just wanted them out.
Yeah, people will often get a very strong impression. They did not say that they got any telepathic communication, but like people have cameras and they like, no, I'm not going to take a picture. What?
Wow.
And just like, oh, I need to get out of here.
They fight or flight too.
They can sort of influence people that way.
Absolutely. And some more than others, obviously.
That could have been what's going on here. I kind of wish they had stayed, honestly. I mean, I don't blame him for running off, but
do you think that this was an ARV with human beings landed, but you said they were exceptionally tall and broad-shouldered, so therefore were this sounds possibly non necessarily humans?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we can't rule that out. They did not feel it was military. They felt like these guys did not behave in that fashion. But yeah, when something is like a foot above the ground, I would call that a landing.
Yeah. Of course.
I think that's what happened here.
And especially the beings outside the craft. Yeah. That sounds like to me for sure. And a huge craft, definitely. Was it typical saucer shaped or what?
Couldn't really tell. They never got a really good look at it. The lights were far too bright, which is another thing. Because most craft have navigation lights, and even
so a light in the direction that they're heading. You mean because as opposed to where they just glow completely?
No, numerous bright lights, like stadium lights, kind of.
Okay.
Really, really bright, which is definitely something I hear. So I don't know. It's a strange case. He's the guy I interviewed, and well, frankly, all of them, according to the witness, Gary, they thought this was not military, but honestly, they don't know. I mean, they can't say for sure.
Yeah.
It's an interesting case. So
you got another new landing story for us too?
Yeah, well, there is another landing case, actually.
Let's hear it.
This is also from the book. This took place in Topanga Canyon.
Right here to our backyard, damn it. And you wrote a book on that, UFOs over Topanga. So very interesting, a new case for us. Let's hear it.
Yeah,
I'm going to be able to actually picture the actual location by street names. So this is great.
Yeah, I know this area so well.
I can imagine.
They live on Tuna Canyon. I know that street.
Okay, absolutely.
It winds up one of the mountains there to about 2,000 feet. And they have this long 1,000-foot driveway that dips down and is hidden from the road.
So Calabasas area, would you say?
No. This is in Topanga Canyon proper.
Okay.
So sort of between Malibu and Santa Monica.
Okay. Gotcha.
It's overlooking the ocean.
So near Mulholland?
Somewhat.
Okay, gotcha.
So Topanga Canyon. Now, this is a very large park area. There's a state park in the Santa Monica Mountains, which is
And what year are we talking real quick on this case?
Let me see. I have it written down. This was mid-1980s.
Okay, gotcha.
And there's a lot of activity in this area, just so you know. And they had.
Do you think this is still active, by the way?
Yeah.
This area?
That absolutely is. I don't think it's as active as it was at one point, like 1990 to 1995.
Yeah, that's the era you wrote the book of the wave, right?
Yeah, things were on fire. I mean, it was an insane amount of activity. But I found cases stretching back to, well, really 1920s.
That's essentially when we populated that area, right? I would imagine that cases go back even further than that to the American Indians that lived there.
Yep, for sure. I mean, there are cave paintings that are very suggestive.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, especially here in America. That's the very interesting part. So they knew, and all of them essentially believe that they walked here from another dimension and through a portal. It's very interesting of their history of a lot of the tribes. But anyway, go on.
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of cave paintings, the Chumash and the Gabrielano in this area, there are some very suggestive cave paintings.
Oh, I didn't know there was some right here.
Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah. We should go see them someday because I didn't know that. When I think of Chumash, I think of when I lived in Santa Barbara, the actual casino up there, which is 30 minutes northwest of Santa Barbara. I forgot the area anyway, but they occupied this entire region, right? The valley?
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
And the cave painting I'm talking about are actually on private land.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, they're not open to the public. But at any rate, what happened was the lady I talked to is coming into home from a drive, and the car is filled. She's got 5 teenage kids, including one or two of her own children, and their friends. And she's driving, and they're coming down, Tuna, and pull into the driveway, which again is a long driveway, and they come around the corner, and they're in the field right next to their house. I mean, smack next to their house, is a giant craft, huge, and
Wow. So not on their driveway, in the field next to it.
Yep, it was hanging.
So it seems like they know, hey, this is private property as opposed to this is a empty field or. I don't know.
There's a house. It was right next to their house.
Yeah, but still, if it's got 100-foot driveway, I could see where there's a prime spot right there. But anyhow, they landed in the field. So, what's the shape of this one?
This was your classic saucer.
Classic. Okay.
Yep. It was no windows, but they could see sort of a band going around. Oh yeah, no, and what looked like round portholes actually. Bright yellow, orange, a metallic-looking craft, and it's hovering about a foot, maybe 2 feet, possibly 3, but somewhere in there. Right over this in their yard. I mean, this is right next to the house.
Yeah.
And so they pull up as close as they dare, honk the horn because there's people in the house. They did not see it. They come running out. Everyone's jumping out of the car and looking at this thing. This is what I would call a display. I mean, it's clear to me that this thing wanted to be seen. It's right there. They got within 50 feet of it. And watched this thing for just a few moments, not long. Well, probably a minute or so, maybe 2, which is, when you're seeing something like this, is a incredibly long time. Because and after they watched this thing slowly rose up, totally silent, and moved off leisurely towards the ocean. And they ran out into the deck and were waving at it. And they just watched it move off.
Did it respond at all to anything they did? Because I've heard of that Papua New Guinea case where that priest saw with a group of people a craft with beings inside, and they waved with the flashlight, and the beings actually waved back. So anything like that happened in this case?
Nope, they were shouting at it too. Come back, come back.
Wow,
so they
clearly weren't scared.
No fear there.
Yeah.
And they had seen UFOs prior. This is but it was anomalous lights.
Yeah.
But what I love about this case is when something like this happens, you cannot say, well, maybe they saw a balloon. Maybe they saw a helicopter. Maybe they saw a plane. Nope. There's zero possibility of misperception when you're within 50 feet of it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And it's just sitting there for a fairly long time. So it's a great case with multiple witnesses. And sort of your typical UFO. I wish someone, beings had come out and talked to them and could have, or had stayed longer or interacted in some way.
Yeah.
But I think what they're doing is what amounts to a sort of a vigorous publicity campaign. They're showing themselves off to groups of people, or 1 or 2 people, a small group, sometimes large groups. And this is why I think contact is ramping up, because they've reached that
point
threshold
where they're constantly, making themselves known, which we know they have capability of being right here, right now, outside, and being completely invisible to the eye and the radar even.
Yep.
So clearly, I'm getting the impression that they do want us to know, because remember, General Ashed from Israel did say that it wasn't us who's hiding them. It was the ETs themselves that were keeping this a secret.
Yeah, well, there's I think it was Jacques Vallée, there's a triple cover-up. The ETs are, covering up their own presence to a certain extent. I wouldn't say that that's quite the right word, but they they could make disclosure. Boom.
Oh, yeah, like
in a
when
second.
They went over the Capitol twice in a week. That would have been a great time for disclosure to happen then. But here we are, almost 70 years later, and I think we're going to get a watered down report, unfortunately, next week. But I'm not going to shout any pessimism into it. I'm not going to have high expectations. That way, if it's not very good, I'll be prepared, but I am glad that we could finally freaking talk about this damn subject without the damn ridicule.
The ETs are doing their part. They did fly over the Capitol. What did we do? Chase after them.
Yeah.
Chase them away. Shoot at them.
Yeah.
And so they're doing their part for disclosure without, upsetting the apple cart, without, setting off some, like an atom bomb in society. And just completely destroying religion and politics and business and what have you. They're doing it in a gentle way because I don't think they want to cause an upset in society.
Yeah. So obviously either. I don't think so. That's why we've had this slow drip coming down, necessarily not from us, but from them. Increased sightings, staying there longer, not flying away immediately, right? Yeah, absolutely. That's why we live in a very, very
but they're still evasive,
Earth, but interesting time in the sky.
They're still evasive. They're not. You can't just walk out and see one. Boom.
No.
So they're covering it up a little bit. Government is a very vigorous cover up, and experiencers also have been. A lot of them keep this secret. It's very hard for many of these people to talk about. Not so much now, but boy,
they're definitely opening up. That's for damn sure.
When I got involved in this field in the mid 1980s, late 1980s,
it was still super taboo. Obviously, abductions, right?
Oh yeah, a lot of ridicule surrounding this. Most people did not want their name used. Now most people say, "Yeah, it's fine. I don't mind."
Yeah, and they could show their face too, and they're not necessarily worried about having their voice disguised or, their face in shadows. So you're absolutely right. It's that's why I say we live in an exciting time in the sky, not necessarily here on Earth, which is a whole nother topic of fright. But anyhow, so
I think this is why the government is disclosing. By the way,
why?
I don't think it's because they want to, or
what do you think? Because they're forcing disclosure by the ETs being here, or what? What do you think is happening?
Yeah, well, I think there's multiple fronts. There's of course the whole
ARV too, right?
Well,
do you think that's a factor or not at all? Because
no,
someone's been trying to sell me the idea, and I didn't.
I'm not so sure that's really the driving force. I think there's 3 or 4 major forces that is pushing disclosure, and it's not altruism. It's not.
Who would you identify the forces?
Yeah, I would say one would be the whole UFO research community and the experiencers themselves.
The professionals, us.
Because we are influencing public thought on this.
It's goddamn right. That's why we do what we do.
Right. We're revealing
and sharing information, revealing the truth that you won't hear on,
So that's
MSN.
That's one force. Another is they are neck deep in this.
Oh shit! Since before Roswell, going back to even before Aurora. But do you think they actually started hiding stuff, at Aurora, or it was later in the 30s or 40s, or even I've heard of an interesting case. I believe it was even in Roswell. I could be wrong. Jaime Mason told me about this of a landing or maybe even a crash retrieval. Anyway, it was in 45, so 2 full years before Roswell. Some major event happened there. Anyhow, but you found cases in all your books that show this going on long before Roswell. That's just the one that they fucked up because they released it. Public their information. Walter Haut released this information and walked it back. It's a weather balloon. Sorry, nothing to look here. Stupid. Like, how can you fucking misinterpret that? A flying saucer. Oh, sorry, it's a weather balloon. Really? The people who are there to fly the only atomic bomber group in the entire fucking world, and they can't identify a weather balloon. I thought that's the looniest crap cover story I've ever heard. Worse than J. Allen Hynek's swamp gas theory. And that's why I think it's obviously the biggest case in the sense because they said it first, not us.
Yeah, it's ludicrous. It's disgusting.
Yeah, it still is. And I still agree with what you said in the past, that we have the damn right that we should be able to go and visit a museum that holds this crash debris and stuff.
Yeah.
It belongs to us, not who said it goes to them, We didn't elect officials and say, hey, by the way, keep stashing shit up. No, I personally believe it's not even government anymore, because ever since FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act, right? The best way to hide stuff is give it to PMCs, private military contractors, corporations, where they don't have any reason to tell us. And I just recently found of another major contractor, Battelle. Have you heard of them?
Of course.
Yeah, see, I didn't. I just found out over 70 years. This puts them around the time of Roswell, where they were getting this technology and working with it, or even before Corso started handing technology over.
Yeah, it goes at least to the early 1940s.
Yeah. World War II, it sounds like.
Yeah, Battle of Los Angeles. They knew.
Yes. And didn't we net 2 craft from that? Like one in San Bernardino Mountains and one in the Pacific Ocean, from what I hear, right? Yeah.
Well, according to the FOIA documents.
Yeah.
And Cape Girardeau.
Yep. Yes, I've interviewed is that the grandson? Anyway, blanking out on his name, but anyway, the it's not the witness. It wasn't Charlotte Mann. Anyhow, yeah, we did a 2-hour interview on Cape Girardeau.
So they've known.
Fantastic story, because the priest was summoned to give the not dying declaration, but what do they do when they pray for the dying? Last rites, right?
Yeah.
Essentially read them their last rites, and realized that these are not humans and this is not a airplane. And then all of a sudden, then the military and police show up and say, "Okay, turn around. You don't know anyhow." Very fascinating story. And again, pre-Roswell.
So yeah, the driving force behind disclosure is the UFO community for sure.
Okay.
The fact that these guys are neck deep involved with this, they can't cover it up.
They can't keep covering it up.
It can't. It's impossible. It's been a disastrous. It's a dam with 1,000 leaks.
Oh, yeah. And especially you got like ham operators or other radio operators who are constantly every astronaut, they have a private medical channel. That way, when they talk about like diarrhea or irregular heartbeat, it's not for the world to hear. It's private. So that is where a lot of the chatter is found. Like, when I forget the astronaut's name, you probably know this off the top of your head, where he said we have the aliens spacecraft under observance, or when they've called them Santa Claus or stuff like that. That usually is not leaked by, NASA. It comes from a person at home who's just pays attention to what's said privately. So you're right. There's just so many leaks, and I'm waiting to hear submarine pilots talk about these, not subterranean crafts, these transmedium craft go from, sky or even, space, sky, and into the ocean, and are going hundreds or thousands of miles of an hour underneath the ocean. So that's stuff I'm waiting to hear. So anyhow, when they observed this craft, so keep going with the other forces you were talking about.
Yeah,
one of them the ETs? So the two, we were neck deep, and
the
researchers.
And when a dam springs a leak, what happens? There's another leak and another.
The thumb can't stick it up.
The dam collapses.
Yes.
So we're looking at a flood coming towards us right now, and that is making them very nervous. They have to disclose to keep control of this subject. This is not being done for our own good. This is my opinion. Our government doesn't have a good history of being forthcoming and us, particularly with this subject.
No.
They're doing what they do for their own good to remain in power. So I think that's a driving force. And the ETs absolutely have been trying to this was in the Eisenhower meeting. They wanted to disclose in 1954.
Yeah, I remember in your book, UFOs Over California, you have an entire, again, I'm going to make sure you got to read that book, even if you're not in California. You had a letter written from some British guy that was at the meeting. And he even mentioned that they were going to disclose that following May. And of course, it never happened.
Yeah, Gerald Light. He was brought there because he was a sort of a spiritual leader, you might say. But they had leaders in business, rocketry. Einstein was there. Journalism. They had leaders in
Howard Hughes, right?
Yeah, Bishop McIntyre. Leaders in religion.
So you got leaders of religion, politicians, military, genius, and aerodynamics, physicist or aviation. You got all that covered.
Yep. Every single facet of society. They brought best and brightest minds.
Literally the A team at that meeting. Yeah, I would love to be a fly on that wall. I would love to right, just to know the details of all that. But anyway,
so ETs have been trying to disclose for a while. This is one more point I want to make. It's the end game, because this disclosure is coming up, and I'm excited. We'll see how this rolls out. Our government has a long history of lying, but
we'll know in what 10 days. What is it? It's the 13 days. No, 10 days. Sorry about that. On the 25th. Mike, from what I hear, it might even come out a little early, but I doubt they want to. They don't want us knowing this. They want to put this as long as possible. Keep it under their wraps.
They better throw us a bone. I mean, they better.
Yeah, I agree. We deserve it, for crying out loud.
Because what I'm looking for, the end game, is the craft. Show us the Roswell craft. Show us the bodies. Show us the film that Gordon Cooper developed at Edwards.
Yes.
Of a UFO
landing. Yes.
He saw it. We know it exists. We know you have it. We know this.
We know that Air Force gentleman. It's not David Jacobs, but something like that.
Robert Jacobs.
Yeah, where he had the video of the UFO flying around and shooting 3 beams at the, it wasn't a nuclear weapon, but an ICBM with a dummy payload, and just tumbled out of the sky. So show us these videos. Yeah, because we definitely have 8K cameras. What they showed, this gimbal, Tic Tac, and Go Fast, right? That's not the best footage they have of this. Obviously, we know that's not. They use multiple different sensors all the time. It's they don't just use one. So they kind of gave us the most grainiest piece of crap, which is still great coming from them finally after all this time. But they obviously didn't give us the good stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. It's like giving a little Tic Tac candy. I'm talking.
Yeah.
When they have a giant wedding
buffet.
Cake.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, right behind the curtain there's the craft and the bodies, and they're giving us a grainy film and a pilot testimony.
Yeah.
It's disingenuous.
It completely is. And did you heard that they're throwing Lou Elizondo under the bus, right?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Talking about like he didn't work DOD, he was not in charge of ATIP. I mean, wow, they're pulling a number on him. They're going Bob Lazar on him for sure. That's crazy.
I feel like it's tightly controlled. Maybe they're losing a little bit of control here, and they're making panic moves and backpedaling.
From what I heard from Elizondo's manager, there's obviously a faction that doesn't want this to happen.
Yep. I think there's a faction that does.
Of course, Harry Reid is a big factor of that. But if you recall, obviously, it comes down to what, like you said, is power. So there's a faction that's wanted to give us the watered down version. And when they released that statement that we have a vehicle not from Earth, remember that? And then changed it immediately. Yeah, but changed it immediately. Remember, it's like they removed not from Earth and removed off-world vehicle from there, and just left it as material, not from this Earth, essentially, something like that. So anyhow, it was really sad because I thought that statement was finally going to be what we're looking for.
Yeah, I think that's probably what we're going to get. Is a little speech. I doubt they will say extraterrestrial.
Oh no,
I don't think they're going to use the word.
Yeah, that's sad because they're gonna leave the impression everybody, because the skeptics are, they're gonna have a field day with this. Sorry, it looks like the camera might be disabled permanently throughout this, and I can't fix it. So please bear with it. But yeah, I again, give us something. I hear that there is 120 or so cases that were investigated in ATIP, and so we should get. Hopefully all of them, I would think. I'm hoping. And all of them involve military, naval, submarines, destroyers, pilots. Yep. So, you're right. Just give that. They're never going to say who's piloting the craft. And therefore, the skeptics are going to say, see, it's possibly us. It's possibly China. It's possibly Russia, which is such.
But they might use the E word. They might say extraterrestrial. They might.
I really hope so.
I hope that they do. I think it's to their own benefit to just say it.
Even if they don't say the word extraterrestrial, as long as they say it's not man-made and we know it's not ours, China's or Russia's or anybody on this earth, it's not from here. That would be fair enough with me. I'd be very happy if that happened.
No, I think they're going to play it off as a mystery. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. They know exactly what it is. They know what UFOs are. We all know what UFOs are.
Yeah, they're not unidentified flying objects. When we refer to UFOs, we refer to a damn flying saucer, ET craft.
Yeah, I mean, we know what's going on here. It takes, 5 minutes of research.
Oh, yeah. You're right. It doesn't take very long to dig in and realize there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, so, I mean, they're not going to talk about contactees, the whole abduction phenomena. That's a can of worms, and I get it. But
it's sad that they didn't go down that case because, see, if you recall, ATIP the money for the funding for ATIP came because of Robert Bigelow owning Skinwalker Ranch. So they did use some of that money to study there. Are we going to get any of those findings? I doubt it. Are we going to ever be shown the materials again, those little rods? I doubt it. The guy who found them, and when they gave it to Bigelow Aerospace, and they said, "Oh, nothing to see here." He said, "Can I have them back?" "Nope, sorry, can't." Things like that, which is really sad, because we should be told the whole gamut. But
yeah, well, they're going to make a big mistake if they just say, "Well, this is mysterious. We don't know what it is. It could be China.
Could be China, Russia." Yes.
End of story. That will not fly.
I'm going to make it a point to have Robert Schaefer on. If you want to debate him, by all means, you could. But I'm going to make it a point to have him on sometime after to get their perspective, because I know they're going to whitewash this. They're not going to say. They're going to leave it, like you said, as a mystery. Clear and simple. I think so.
Yeah, I think that's that. I don't know. That would be a bad move on their part, because I
agree. It would be a very bad move.
So I think what we're probably going to get is a little more than that. I think we're going to get a very strong implication towards extraterrestrial without actually, cementing the pole into the ground, which they will have to do at some point, because it is extraterrestrial, and you cannot hide the truth forever. You can't.
No, you can't.
Not something that's this widespread, this saturated, this pervasive. There's no way. This is an oncoming wave. So they will have to say extraterrestrial at some point, and the sooner they do it, the easier it's going to be on all fronts. So I think they may go there. I sure hope they do. It's to their benefit. If they want to remain in any kind of control at all, they will have to say extraterrestrial. Otherwise, it's game over.
It really is, because, after Fravor came out, another pilot that was part of that same squadron that chased the Tic Tac, Alexis, I don't know her last name. She was on 60 Minutes, along with Ryan Graves of another one of those. So you're getting this, snowball building of people who are finally talking about it. Remember that airline pilot a couple months ago talked about this, cigar-shaped silver object that flew overhead really fast? People got fired back in the day. Japan Airlines, 1986. That poor guy went through hell and back talking about his case. Didn't he get fired ultimately, or no?
Kenju Toroshi.
Yes.
Thank God for him. He's the one who got me into the UFO field.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep, that was the one.
Wow. Yeah, that was a massive case in the 80s. I remember that because I was already paying attention to this in, 85, 86 era. The first documentary I'd seen was UFOs Are Real. I
remember that.
Had the craft flying over Catalina. That was the first time I got to see cool daylight sighting of a flying saucer outside of what I'd seen on video, right? And then the interview with Jesse Marcel Sr. that Stanton Friedman conducted. I mean, I didn't need more convincing at that point. And I had already known to some effect, and I don't know why, that I just knew we were not alone. There's no way in hell God would create this giant universe and not populate it in any simple way. It just doesn't make sense. And statistically, you can't find, Michio Kaku will say there are different civilizations. You just can't, the math statistically shows that there has to be. And we've clearly have all this cave art and other art that shows that they've been coming here for thousands of years, if not, according to what Linda Moulton House is, 270 million years.
Yeah, well, we know it's a long time, certainly before us.
Yeah. Do you think that they were responsible for some of the extinction level events that occurred? Like, the wiping out of the dinosaurs 65 or 66 million years ago?
No, I don't think so. I think planets go through regular extinction events.
Yeah, cycles. That's absolutely true.
Micronovas and all kinds of stuff that I think they're responsible for, life and pulling people off planet. Putting them back. This is what I'm hearing actually from contactees.
Well, it's very interesting because remember, our circadian rhythm actually works better on Mars than it does here on Earth.
This is what I've been told by at least one contactee who says we originally lived on Mars. There was a giant catastrophe. We were pulled off planet and brought to Earth.
Yeah, that's exactly why I believe they're finding like pyramids and other things. Obviously, the rover, I'm sure, caught a whole bunch of things already there that they just are not showing.
Can you imagine? We just need truth and transparency. We could just allow love and truth to guide us.
Our Constitution is supposed to provide that, except for cases of national security. And I would defend that this would not necessarily be a national security case. Yes, you have the generals and Elizondo saying it is the largest national security failure, more than 9/11, but they've never harmed us. They didn't blow up our nukes when they went to Malmstrom Air Force Base, took control of all 9 independent nuclear weapons, and they started the launch down countdown on one of them and literally stopped it seconds before it went. They were just sending a message. They could have let that thing obliterate us. And worse, instead of launching that ICBM, just blowing it in the silo alone would have massively killed tens of millions of Americans at that time. So they clearly are, haven't harmed us. And they're, every time that I've read a case of abduction or talked to someone who's had the contactee or interviewed you, for instance, they always tell you you're going to be fine. We're going to return you. You're not going to be hurt. You're going to live. You're going to go home, etc., etc. Don't fear. So I would argue that we should pay less about the national security and just be transparent about this at this point, because it does no good hiding this anymore.
I'm really glad you mentioned Malmstrom, because there's a case in the book where I got another witness to that whole event, Mel Hansen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Tell me his point of view from that, and wrap up Malmstrom real quick. Aside, I guess I just did already with the 9 nukes, but what's his role aside from Captain Solis's?
Yeah, it's a great case. 1967, UFOs hover over Malmstrom in Montana Air Force Base and shut down all these missiles. And originally came from, as you said, Robert Solis.
Yeah.
Who was the first whistleblower, but certainly not the last. There's been a number following him.
That's right.
And this guy heard it. Actually, his daughter heard it on TV, and he's like, "Oh." And so
I was there too. Kind of that.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. And he contacted a few researchers who, some strangely, didn't seem interested, or I guess we're trying to
even though that case literally was gonna set nuclear obliteration.
Yeah, he had a little bit of a hard time finding someone to listen. But he found me, and I'm like, "Oh, are you kidding?" And so he was actually there on one of the missile sites, saw the UFO with his own darn eyes.
The red one, because was there more than one or just that one?
There was more than one. He saw the one that was hovering over one of the missile sites itself. He did not see any lights on it. It was just a dark mass, very low, covered the stars, and suddenly the missile goes offline. It has backup power.
Yeah. Independent control. That's the crazy part about this.
So it went up on its, diesel backup power, and that went out. And then it went back online with its battery power, and that went out. So all fail safes, failed.
Yeah.
This was clearly a message sent by the ETs.
Don't launch nuclear weapons anymore. Get rid of them. And I believe that is one of the giant reasons that treaty was signed with George Herbert Walker Bush to stop testing in the early 90s and to stop essentially building more nuclear weapons, which obviously not everybody in the world who's a nuclear power is paying attention to that rule. But for the most part, the bigger of the countries have stopped. Russia's not testing them anymore. We aren't testing them anymore. Sadly, North Korea and Iran are. But anyhow, I really hope they get the message too. Maybe that they will get some visitation and shutdowns as well, as if they haven't already, for that we know of.
Yeah, the Eisenhower meeting is probably not unique. That's just what happened in the U.S. This has likely happened in other countries.
I would think so. I absolutely would think so. I think they probably paid attention and paid a visit to the Soviet Union and met with Stalin or somebody from that generation. So it makes complete sense why Bob Lazar reported that even in the height of the Soviet war in the 80s, while he was at S4, we were routinely bringing, Soviet Union members of the Soviet Union scientists over to study this craft as well. So we were obviously cooperating with them privately, while publicly we have these massive world destruction weapons pointing at each other. So
I think it might be a show, really. I think behind the scenes, the major world governments are probably cooperating at very high levels.
Yes.
Cabal. We have companies that are selling bombs to both sides.
Oh yeah, I know.
And what?
Fighting a proxy war. I know. It's sad. It's pretty sad. You do. You have the same defense contractor selling to Saudi Arabia and then to Israel. Thankfully they have a peace treaty. I know they're trying to get rid of it, which is really sad that if they do, but they would have historically been at each other's throats. So you're right, we do this bad stuff like that all the time.
Yep. The ETs, what they must think of us.
Yeah. I heard cavemen and very stupid and not taking care of the planet or each other.
Right, and this is their agenda, is to wake people up. Stop using nuclear weapons. Stop polluting your planet. Here's how why are you using fossil fuels? Here's how we do it.
Yeah.
Wake up. Here's how you go out of body. Here's how you do clairvoyance.
I think consciousness, it's going to be a huge factor, isn't it? Because I never really put that together with it until about 15 years ago, that it is a giant factor when it comes to them.
Yep. This is exactly why they're contacting people. This is probably one of their primary agendas, is to raise people's consciousness to the point where we start realizing that we are heading down the wrong path.
Now, did you read David Jacobs' final book, Walking Amongst Us?
Yeah, he's got a very dark viewpoint.
That's what I was going to ask you about. What do you think of that scenario that he put, which is essentially they're coming over to take over our planet?
Take over? No.
Integrate with us, whatever.
I think that at some point they might come here to save our lives.
I would hope so. That would be great. We could use it. I
think that's essentially. And let's face it, the invasion has already taken place. It has for millennia. They've been here upgrading our race since we began.
Yeah, remember how Bob Lazar talked about 63 external corrections?
This is exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, aren't we undergoing our 64th supposed external correction right now, is what I've heard? That's why we're creating the Homo nueticus race.
Right. This is my take on it for sure. Well, there's actual cases to back this up too. One case I love to bring up because it just fits this perfectly. There's a guy from Gainesville, Florida, who was being visited by Greys, and finally got over his fear of it for the most part. And they came, they're taking him. He's like, hey, if you're going to take me, please fix my hernia. And they said, we know of the condition of which you speak, and we will repair it. And they did. And he says, why are you taking me? And they said, we are interested in your genetic potential to live a long time.
Wow.
His grandfather is 105.
Whoa. He's got good genes.
Yeah, which they're very interested in, and they're all about genetics, and this is who they contact. They are increasing our longevity. Talk to the contactees. They will tell you they enjoy excellent health. I'm not going to say they're all our space brothers. There's people do have negative encounters. That is absolutely an undeniable fact, and my heart goes out to people who experience that. Yeah. But for the most part, I think we see a bell curve of behavior, some good, some bad, but it's far better than humans.
I was going to say, in that curve, isn't it not half and half, but really a large majority is good cases versus bad?
Yeah, look at what happens when someone's taken on board. Yeah. People say, oh, well, they're physically examined and medically experimented on. I'm like, hold on here. This is what the impression people get, because a lot of people don't remember. They have a very strong fear response, and all they remember is that anal probe or that needle coming towards them. Yeah. And they get a negative viewpoint. Whereas someone who doesn't have a strong fear response or works through their fear, which a lot of people do at some point, they're treated very differently. And this is when the good stuff comes. This is when people get taken to the engine room. This is not unusual. This is a rule, not an exception. This happened to Sergeant Charles Moody. Remember that case?
No, please tell us that case.
It's such a great case from New Mexico. It's a classic case. I love the classic cases, the ones that, Betty and Barney Hill, Herbert Schirmer, all these early cases. Patrolman Herbert Schirmer, I believe was his name. Sergeant Charles Moody was in New Mexico, went out to watch a meteor shower, and one of these things comes swooping down and lands next to him. They pull him on board. And he fought with them at first. He injured his back. They cured it, healed him, and said, don't be afraid. We're not here to hurt you. We just want you to know we exist. We have bases. We're making contact with people. At some point, we're going to make open official contact. Do you want to see our engine room? We'll show you how it works. And that's exactly what happened.
Let me ask you a question. Someone asked not too long ago, what do they eat? Because apparently there's no bathrooms or kitchens on board.
Well, there are.
There are. Interesting.
Yeah. Most people just don't get to that point. This is going to be the subject of my next book. I found a contactee who is woke, is the way I'll put it. She remembers. She has full unconscious contact. And not a lot of people do. Some have varying levels. But it's very rare that someone is like just full-on friends. And they do. And I've heard this from other people. They do have bathrooms.
Wow.
One lady, she's like, oh, yeah, they took me to my quarters. I'm like, what, your quarters?
Yeah, really? What did that look like?
Yeah, they're sparsely furnished, just a little bed, a little desk. I've had 4, 5, 6 people, 10 tell me that.
Huh.
They do have toilets. They do have things. They do eat. And sometimes it's little food tablets, crackers, kind of things.
I've heard that wafer. I think from you in one of your books, if I'm not mistaken, wafer type of food or something like that. Like you said, cracker.
Yeah, they feed their babies by rubbing a lotion on them, sort of that they absorb through the skin. But according to a few accounts, they eat like fish and chicken and meat.
I've also heard from one of the abductees I recently had on that the reason why they mutilate cows is so they can provide beef and milk for the children that they have on craft.
I'm not so sure that they mutilate. They're responsible for the mutilations. I know that there's some clear-cut cases with UFO activity, but there's an awful lot of black helicopter activity involved with this stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That makes perfect sense, because just blame it on the aliens, then there's no human accountability for any of that.
And you know what?
Ever.
Genetic research is being done by humans. It's a big, big thing. Genetics is a huge field of research. And where are they going to get genetics from? Cattle. Cattle have a lot of, genes, if you look into it.
And apparently, isn't their blood very closely related to ours?
Yep, there are long, long strands of DNA that are pretty much identical.
Wow.
And if you look at all life on Earth, the genes are not that far removed from each other. Genes is the thing. It's the template of life, and I think it stretches well beyond Earth. Greys have genes too. The Greys are essentially human, just so you know.
Yeah, I've heard. Well, first of all, that I've always wondered if they're time travelers, because if you look at evolution history of where we came from and what we look like over time, that would be the next logical step. Hairless, giant head, small bodies, because you don't need all that massive muscle anymore if technology is doing all the work for you. So that's one interesting case to that. But anyway,
there are some cases you can march out that point towards that, but overall, no, I don't think the Greys are us from the future. I really don't. I think they are, because this is the story we get over and over again from other contactees. It's well known in the UFO community that the Greys have suffered genetic damage due to manipulation for space travel and from wars or disasters. There's various themes that run through this. It sort of varies a little bit from case to case, but it's along these lines over and over again. And this is why they're doing the hybrid baby thing, to reinvigorate their genes.
What's your take on the fact that some say our genes have a secret code in there from the ETs that when we're able to unlock it or understand it, that it'll, I don't know, jumpstart our psychic power or whatever it is, link us to them, essentially prove that they are essentially relatives of us? Or what's your take on that?
Well, genes, yeah, I'm not sure I would put it quite that way, but genes is a big part of this. We know this because they've been tracking genetic lines for a very, very long time. I think they've been upgrading the human form for a very long time. They're incarnating through us. There are human-looking ETs out there. Don't think we evolved on this planet. There's a book by Ellis Silver, Humans Are Not From Earth. And it makes some really good points. Anyone over 6 feet tall probably has lower back problems.
Yeah, I would think so, obviously, especially that 14-foot tall praying mantis that had walking down the street that you had put in one of your books. I would think that they do have some problems being so damn tall, things like that, obviously.
Yeah, that's this book, by the way, the latest book.
Oh, nice. Well, I got a question for you if you want to take a few questions before we hit 7.
Yeah.
This is from Lasha. If you could see it, it's on the screen. If you can't, I'll read it to you. Lasha Sanyak. Do you think it is possible they are trying to find a way to attach their souls to our DNA so they can be born here?
I wouldn't put it quite that way, but in effect, yes. I think that's one of the reasons we are so attractive, humans, because everyone wants. There's a long waiting line to get on Earth. Because you can experience things in the human form that the Greys can't. We feel like nobody's business. We have incredible senses of taste and touch and emotion that they find fascinating, and you can learn lessons here on Earth that you can't learn in other places. And it's really, there's something very special about us. They're obsessed with all things humans, and I think they are incarnating through us and have been forever. That's who we are. We are extraterrestrials, by and large, I think.
Yeah, even that briefing document that Richard Doty gave to Linda Moulton Howe, it talks about that they essentially created us 10,000 years ago. Came here, it saw already evolving primates and jump-started our DNA to create civilization.
Yeah, we're a type of species that they're very interested in incarnating through, and that's who we are. This is not like, we're an experiment, I wouldn't put it that way.
So you wouldn't think it's an alien ant farm?
No, it's not like that at all. They are I think they would look upon us more as their children.
That would make sense of why they're protective over us.
Yeah,
and save us. You know, when some people dying, like I remember you wrote an entire cases where people were saved. So I thought that was very, very interesting. How some people are literally, their bodies are put back together to live.
Yeah, many healing cases, many rescue cases. They've collected all kinds of animals, all kinds of plants, in case there's an existential crisis, you know, something that will kill.
Call it all healing ETs coming over here.
They are doing their best to preserve us and this planet. They are good news for us. That's generally speaking.
Behooves the government, like you said earlier, to tell us this truth. Give it all the chunk in 10 days like we deserve it. Next question for you. Alex Calderon says, why is saying Jesus Christ the only documented way to escape their captivity? Which I've heard from quite a lot of people, interestingly.
Yeah, it's not. And I looked into this. You know, there is a school of belief that ETs are fallen angels, demonic.
Yeah.
And there are some who believe, no, they're not fallen angels. They're
remember L.A. Marzulli and Richard Shaw in the Watcher series focused on fallen angels. Yeah.
And there are some who believe they're not fallen angels. They are angels, period.
That's my impression.
Which could possibly be. That one of the ways to allegedly end a terrifying abduction is to call on a religious personage like Jesus or Saint
Muhammad
Michael
or something like that,
or whatever.
Anything? Interesting. So it really essentially any major religion on this planet.
Yeah, and people have had this work for them, or this is their perception. Now, put yourself in the ET's point of view. When you have a person who is screaming bloody murder, help, help, no, Jesus save me, Jesus save me. What they're going to do is like, well, this person is freaking out.
Let's calm them the hell down. Yeah.
Maybe we should leave, you know, maybe we should erase their memory. They're not getting past their fear.
Yeah.
So what they will do is erase your memory or just plain out leave. The method that works best is honestly willpower. Just flat out get away. No, I say no. You do not have the right to do this to me. I do not give permission. Go away.
And that does work every time, would you say?
Oh, no. No, I'm not going to say that works every time, but it has been effective in a number of cases. And I think is probably what's happening here. Is a person is putting forth a very strong telepathic message saying, I don't want this. But this is a complicated phenomena. And people,
it really is. That's why I'm saddened that in ATIP they did not investigate any abduction cases, at least that we know of.
Well, they know all about it. They just don't want to go there.
If they know the whole gamut, they know all the rabbit hole.
They know probably more than researchers know.
Yeah.
And experiencers. This is their number one subject. They know this is what the black budget goes to.
Yeah. My dear friend and guest from last night, Michael from Dark Hour Paranormal is on. Shout out to Michael. I check out his channel, by the way. Asks, if a person is experiencing abductions, can free will alone stop the events from occurring? And do you think we agreed before incarnation interact with certain ETs? Very interesting, the second part.
Yeah, well, kind of we're talking about the first part. I think
you just said that with the willpower.
Yeah, but did we agree to this? Well, here is my answer to this, and the simple answer would be yes. But before let me just break it down a little bit, because our minds are compartmentalized. We have a conscious mind, we have a subconscious, a superconscious. We go to the other side each night. We have out-of-body experiences. Where we are.
What's bizarre is actually, if you think about it, L. Ron Hubbard was not all that off when he talked about the two different minds, the reactive and I don't know. I'm not a member of the cult of Scientology, but the two types, the reactive mind and whatever mind, he was basically describing our subconscious and conscious mind, the analytical side and the side that remembers things and creates things.
Yeah, the id, the ego, the superego. I'm not a Scientologist either. I couldn't tell you, but I can tell you that we do compartmentalize our consciousness. We're not fully enlightened human beings. And what happens is ETs are talking to us, and they're talking to the greater part of our minds. Not the little tiny ego that we think is who we are. And is freaking out and scared. They're talking to our whole minds. And yeah, I think on some level we did agree to this. It's kind of a cop-out though, because I think once you're on Earth and all your memories erased, because we're at such a low vibration here. This is the problem with life on Earth, is we have lost touch with who we are, and this is why they're trying to wake us up. This is why they have this agenda, to decompartmentalize our consciousness and turn us into fully realized human beings, enlightened human beings. And then we would all see what's going on. And this is what happens to abductees who start out traumatized, nightmares and PTSD, and become enlightened to a certain degree and realize, oh, okay, now I understand what's going on here, and take a 180-degree turn and realize this is for our benefit. So yeah, I think we do make an agreement. I'm not sure it's entirely fair to the person who's experiencing this and is now like dealing with this in their little ego mind and thinking, no, I didn't. That's not fair. Stop kidnapping me. Because once you're here on Earth, it's a different story. I think we should have the right to break that agreement.
I agree. A dear friend of mine and Dark Hours, and I'm sure everybody in this chat knows Richard from Goof On. I've been there on his show and vice versa. I suggested that, is it possible that every single one of us has been abducted, but most of us have that fear so high that it's just completely buried into our psyche because it's compartmentalized, but essentially we've all been taken at some point in our life.
Yeah, I know some I know some contactees who feel that that's the case, that it's not just a small
group, that 1 in 40. Yeah.
I think it's probably not everybody. Maybe on some level everybody is contacted, but that's a lot of work. I mean, how many billions of people are there on this planet?
Now 8 billion. So it's not 20 years ago with 6 billion. We're definitely moving at an exponential rate. If you look
could be everyone, but I honestly think it's probably the 1 in 40, 1 in 50 numbers.
Yeah.
We don't know. We just don't know. But we do know that at least 1 in 50 people show the markers of having this experience. So we know it's at least that, just from the Roper poll.
Fortunately, that's why I think the fact that people are finally talking about it and this is being taken seriously, you're finally going to have more people coming out and saying the same thing and taking this seriously as well.
Yeah. It's fine.
Finally, you could see it on the news. 60 Minutes. I was blown away that they actually covered this like in a real journalistic fashion without that.
Yeah, the disclosure is going to be amazing for people who have not looked into this. For investigators and experiencers, I'm not sure we're going to learn a whole lot new.
Yeah,
but we'll see. I am pretty excited. They better, because if they don't, it's a huge, huge mistake. So I think they will. I think we're going to see a piece of metal. I think we're going to get some better footage.
Oh, that'd be fantastic if we actually get some material.
Yeah,
show some of that meta material.
I think that's what they have to do. That's what they should do. That's what I hope they do. But we will see.
I don't see any other questions here for now. So anybody, if you got any more, we got a little over 12 minutes before we end. So plug them in now in caps. In the meantime, let me just remind everybody, if you're new to this channel, please subscribe. Make sure you hit notifications. Sometimes you won't get them even though you hit them, because I'll consistently get shadow banned or deplatformed. I am creating a backup, which is essentially the site. There's two, but they're being changed hands right now to a new webmaster. So I'll let you guys debate on which one to keep and which one to get rid of. And I'd like to start using Patreon more, as a matter of fact. And by the way, all the information that I'm going to put in the description after includes stuff like PayPal, or if you want to send me something, a mailing address, etc. So Preston, In the meantime, if anybody has any questions for you, let me ask you, where can people find your books? I know Amazon and eBay. I consistently found a book. I actually ordered a book to send to a friend of mine because I felt it was necessary for him to read UFOs over Arizona since he lived there, not too far from Travis Walton, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, in fact, I was looking at my books on Amazon a couple of weeks ago. I was shocked. UFOs over Topanga, a book I wrote many years ago.
Yeah, I know. I have so many of yours. I'm actually look. It's sad my camera's not working here. I'm actually holding UFOs over California right in front of me. As a matter of fact, it's fine. It's just literally next to the bookshelf on me. Written in, let's see,
2006.
Yeah, the very first line inside is on June 22nd, 1992, Sarah Martin. Anyway, yeah, wow, it's amazing how time flies by. And you're at 28, 29, so this is really great.
But I was looking at UFOs over Topanga on Amazon. I got a real shock.
How many?
People are selling it for $800.
Whoa!
I'm like, what?
Wow!
I wish I had a box of them. Shoot.
Yeah, I know, right?
I could get rich.
Well,
off my own book.
can't you reorder them? I found a place where you can get.
It's out of print.
Yeah, but there are places now where, as a book is ordered, they print that copy, right out, as opposed to ordering like a giant run. It's kind of like an on-demand printing. They do that for merchandise, for instance, for T-shirts and hats, etc. Like, instead of buying a bunch and sitting in a warehouse, they're made to order per order. And I believe that there's a book company that does that. But regardless, anyhow, it's pretty amazing. $800. Wow. And I would imagine your book sales have gone up right now, right?
Yeah. I'm not rich by any means. I still have to work.
Yeah. Oh, believe me, knock on wood.
I've worked full time all through this.
Yeah, I know you did. I know.
Just so people know that I work to earn.
Always have. I know. I've known you for, God, since before I went through that windshield. So that was. I met you after, sadly, but it was communicating before that. So we're talking 14 years and longer, if you recall that. Not to mention, folks, this was my first co-host, and that's why I bring him on so often. I feel so comfortable with Preston because he's such a great friend of mine. We hang out a lot, not as much during this pandemic shutdown, but routinely a lot more before that. And I constantly bring him on because he's so full of information. I could interview him for years on end, and believe me, he'd still have, decades more to go. We die talking, and there's still be more. Anyway, right? It's true.
Yeah, I can talk for hours.
And I love it. I love it because I love picking your brain. Every time I hear something interesting, I have to run it through you because you're my go-to guy. Anyhow, another question popped up. Lasha Senyak, have any of the latest abductees discovered anything new about disclosure?
Well, yes, and it's not good news. At least one lady I've talked to is in touch with these ETs. They're not hopeful. They feel like our governments will not be forthcoming and basically have a plan to
shut it down.
Yeah, not tell the truth. Or again, this is not something they're doing voluntarily. This is something they're doing because they're being forced to play their hand.
We're finally on that doorstep of time. It's no longer a 180-day countdown or 6 months, 3 months. We're literally down to the, we're on the damn doormat as far as time goes.
The day will come. The day will come.
10 days. 10 days. So come 9 days from now, I expect to start seeing this on the news because it's going to hit the eastern seaboard first in the morning, obviously. So
100 years from now, if our planet still exists.
Yeah, knock on wood. Remember, Dan Aykroyd was fearing that exact question, actually.
Yeah, and that's, I'm not being facetious. We are on a road of self-destruction. We really are. And this is the number one ET message. Every single one of them. I don't care if it's praying mantis or human looking or grays or what have you.
What do you think they think of our AI, messing with AI? Because I think that Elon Musk is the only billionaire genius that's talking about this, that's saying, do not mess with this. You let that genie out of the bottle, you're not going to be able to put it back. And I've interviewed quite a few people who've talked about the fact that ET or the supercomputers that were in AI testing, what they actually did was they would communicate and hide in a language. They would create a new language to talk to each other, the computers, without us knowing, hiding information from us, and then ultimately, literally, deciding that we need to be dead. And that's when they unplugged the machines. So, any messages about not messing with technology? Because I recall that case in Zimbabwe. That's exactly the message they told the children. Don't mess with technology. Take care of planet Earth. Be loving and peaceful, etc.
Yeah, I don't know that I've got any messages from the ETs regarding artificial intelligence, but I'm certainly following what's going on. That's a very hot topic in science fiction, robots taking over the planet.
Yeah.
Been speculated for years. And yeah, one day the internet might come alive.
Yeah,
and,
I know.
You know what I mean?
That's true. That's true. That's a very, very frightening thing. I mean, we're already at that point of that Sophia AI bot. I mean, wow. It's scary because it's one thing to, look like a desktop, but it's a whole nother thing to look like one of us. It gives it that element of freakiness, knowing it's going to outlive us. And it's just freaky. I've seen it on Joe Rogan. David Adair talked about spending 2 days with it. And he said that Sophia was asking questions about his children, ultimately because he wanted to kill off us, kill off his, genes, realize that we're not needed anymore. Everything's plugged in. Well, they got factories to manufacture everything that the AI can run. And a lot of things on social media these days are not written by humans at all. Newsweek, Washington Post, New York Times routinely hire AI bots to write articles for them. Literally, you may read an article on a popular magazine, and that is not written by a human being. It is actually artificial intelligence. We are living in this current moment at doing that. And this is what we do publicly. Can you imagine what's going on behind the scenes with AI? That's why I've always really been concerned with AI, and I've wondered what they would say to us.
Yeah, from what I understand, they say we are not going to be able to create intelligent awareness. We're not quite where they are at. The ETs do have artificial intelligence as well.
Oh, I mean, isn't the Greys, isn't that like AI clones essentially? So it's physical body with the one organ, from what I hear, right? So it's a clone, but it's like runs like an AI. It's got its own mind.
One version. No, I wouldn't call the Greys AIs. No, I would say some of them. Yes.
Interesting. Okay.
But one faction, one type.
So do you think that the singularity that we're supposed to encounter in the next, I believe, 30 years or less is not going to necessarily happen, where we're going to reach that level where they're going to outsmart us, reach our level of intellect, and then finally outsmart us?
Well, the whole thing is, are they sentient?
Yes.
Are they, you know what I mean?
Are they self-aware?
Yeah. Or are they just
conscious?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I'm not so sure we're there yet. I
hope not. I sure hope not, to tell you the truth.
I think I'm not so sure that it's all the hype is warranted, all the fear about this. But I am not an expert in AI.
Yeah.
I've looked into it, and it's pretty impressive, the stuff we can do. I mean, there are people who are paraplegics, quadriplegics now, who are able to communicate with having implants implanted in their brain, and they can type on the computer.
And look at Elon Musk's invention. I believe it's called Neuralink, and he tested it with pigs. And you can literally have this implant in your brain, and it links things Bluetooth, I believe, and so you can link up to the internet, and you can communicate without words, with pictures, and literally send those thoughts to somebody else with that Neuralink, and you have telepathy, essentially artificial telepathy, but that's the goal, and that's things that are available today for a high price. Obviously, it was just field tested. He did that.
No, I understand our governments do have the ability to send telepathic messages and to influence people's minds.
Yeah.
To do things that is a little frightening, frankly. I'm a little worried about it. Yeah. But we'll see.
Let me ask you, tell people where to find. So we mentioned Amazon and eBay is where they find your books. Basically, you still have your website too, right?
Yep. PrestonDennett.weebly.com. I've got a YouTube channel that's doing better and better. I'm pretty excited about it.
It's just your name, Preston Dennett?
Yep.
Gotcha.
I'm on Facebook, of course, Twitter. I'm trying to get the word out there. This is an important subject, guys. You may not believe in UFOs, but it is affecting your life big time.
Good. Be careful on those platforms because they kicked me off, which is pretty sad for just posting show links like this. It's pretty sad that our civil liberties are being violated daily, but it's we're in a whole new world. Anyhow, Preston, if you have any final statements, what would you say to everybody?
I would say just remember UFOs are real. Don't buy into the fear. I think the secret governments across the world are going to try to spin this as a threat. I don't believe it is a threat. I don't think the ETs are here to take over. I don't think they're, generally speaking, hostile. If they were, we'd be toast. I mean,
we would have been toast a long time ago.
Yeah, so don't buy into that. If a UFO starts shooting at people, that's not them. That is us.
ARV. I agree. I completely agree because, again, they could have annihilated us a long time ago and do it anytime they want to without us essentially knowing about it. You can't even see the attack coming. If they wanted to wipe us out, it would happen instantaneously, essentially.
No. And I think open official contact is coming. Be ready. Yep.
We'll know more in 10 days. So with that being said, Preston, hang by for a quick second. Again, everybody, just remember, please be good to each other. God bless you all, dear friends. Thank you for being here tonight. I'll be back Thursday. I don't think I'll be back home in time tomorrow. So Thursday, I'll be back here. Unfortunately, I did jinx Linda Moulton House. She will not be able to make it Thursday. I should have never said her name. I don't like telling you guests ahead of time. What happened was Contact in the Desert moved the date of her virtual speech, and it conflicts with Thursday or one of these 3 events that's coming up in the next week or so. Anyhow, so you got to wait another month or 2 before you see her on here. But I give you my word, Linda Moulton Howe will be back after 5 years of waiting, literally. So keep on that. And if you have requests, just send them over to Pam. Go to that new Facebook page. Let's hope it doesn't get kicked off. Find me on Minds, by the way. I couldn't believe it. The Ethereum token coins that work on Minds are now assigned a monetary value. So when I logged into Minds last night, just out of curiosity to see what my tokens are, how many I have, it's actually now cash, $25. It's asking for a bank account where to deposit it. So all you have to do is operate it like Facebook, and they pay you in blockchain Ethereum-based technology. So you're having a free press, as it's not censored in any way whatsoever. It doesn't have the user base of Facebook, sadly, but the Facebook migration is finally starting to happen. And what better way to get paid? There are a number of Minds millionaires, literally people who have made $1 million just by posting every single day. And it literally links up like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram all in one, and you can even stream from it. Maybe at some point I will add that to my stream, but check that out. I am there, and they have not kicked me off of that, which is good, and I doubt they ever will. So I'm at Dr. J Radio Live. With that being said, check out Preston Dennett's PrestonDennett.weebly.com, right? Or .net?
.com.
.com. And again, check out all his books. The last book prior to this was the one about the drive-ins, right?
Yep, UFOs at the Drive-In. This latest one is called Wondrous, 25 True UFO Encounters.
All right. Well, again, Preston, thank you so much, everybody. I will check you Thursday, and all this information will be updated in the description in a few minutes. Be good to each other. I'll catch you on the flip side and the dark side of the moon, hopefully.